Is this episode 1, 3, 4, 9, 52, 64? This is the award-winning but highly illegal What the Hell Happened Last Week? Episode number 4, right?
Yay!
And as always, the disclaimer for you, if you are currently watching or listening to this, is that it will be a complete waste of your valuable time. You should do other things like go in the garden and plant something, go out for a jog.
In the winter?
Yes, especially in the winter to wake yourself up. You should read a book. You should do something educational. Play with your kids. They really need your attention. You really don't need to be listening to this, especially while playing with your kids. It is an emotional hazard to do so. So this is your disclaimer before you get into any of the nonsense that we're going to talk about. And of course, I'm speaking about me, since I am the person that is usually wasting your time. The other person on the other end is the incomparable Sandy Lamb, the Sandy Lamb, who is probably much more engaging and thoughtful and well-spoken than I probably could ever be on this nascent podcast.
Well, I'm not sure about that, but
Yeah.
let's see.
Okay, so since I've been monopolizing all the time, the past episodes of what's been happening, so I want to start with you this week. Sandy, what the hell happened last week? I don't even recall. Apparently, since I can't remember sequential numbers, I would much rather rely on your recalling ability on what happened.
So yeah, I took almost 2 weeks of vacation, went back to Vancouver, and I have to say, like, this time I made the trip very different than what I normally do, because I know I'm going to repeat this again. I know Lee is going to like get bored of me saying this over and over. So last time when I met Lee Duncan, he told me one thing that it just got totally stuck on my head, which he said to me that if there's one thing that you want to invest on meeting people. And that has been just totally stuck on my head. And I purposely, this time during my Vancouver trip, I purposely dedicate most of my time meeting people. And it was amazing experience. So I don't know how many people I've met, like probably like over 30, or I don't know, like I had days where I had breakfast, brunch, lunch, dinner with different people, and just had like amazing conversations. So I had met up with people that I have, someone that I haven't seen for over 20 years. I have met up with my ex-boss, where I finally got the chance to properly say thank you to her. And it was amazing talk. And I met up with people that I have only worked virtually, like Natasha and Lisa Lambert. I don't know Natasha's last name actually.
Wainwright.
Okay, yeah. And when I met up with Natasha, it was supposed to be just like a tea meeting kind of thing. And then we end up staying in the restaurant for like 6 hours or something. And we were like,
You ate food for 6 hours?
We didn't. We only
well, hey, I don't.
Coffee.
Well, okay. Well, yeah. And it was one of,
We were
I wondering,
like,
there's this long line going out the restaurant around the corner. People are waiting to get a thing and they're just looking at you going, those women don't want to get up.
I know.
I mean, did you actually, did they shout at you when they came up to your table? Like, can you leave? Or did they not bother you at all? And you just.
That's why we didn't even know what time it was, because they didn't even kick us out. And eventually we looked at our clock and then realized how late it was, and then we decided that, hey, let's just order a dinner dish so it doesn't look so bad that we only spent like $5 or something on
yeah, like my dog needs to
hours.
walk, I'm gonna keep him in the house. He'll be all right. No problems there. Let's just eat.
Yeah, it was really amazing conversation. Like we talked about like all sorts of things, like life, business, our career. Even we went in talking about our financials. Yeah, I mean, for someone that you never really met, I was really surprised how the conversation actually went. So I had a really, really great time. And also I talked to someone who, I think it was one of the biggest takeaway from this trip was we're able to talk to someone who is relatively rich, and she had taught me how to make money work for me instead of me working for money. And
what did she
yeah,
say?
I mean, investment basically, and build your passive income. And one thing that she has said to me, because I always doubt when I try to invest my money, and I always doubt, like, is this really a great time to, for example, buy a house or buy an apartment or something? And then what she said to me is, that's never the right time, because you can never predict the market. Nobody in the world can really do. They may be lucky that they can guess the market, but you can never really predict the market. So there's no really like the right time, and the time that you choose to invest, or the time that you choose to make that decision is actually the right time for you. So yeah, so it was cool. I think I spent 12 days in Vancouver, and then I was in Amsterdam afterwards. First was at Crystal's workshop again. So it totally
So
surprised me. Like, yeah,
so
go
did
ahead.
you didn't drive all this way, right? Because you've been doing like road trips for a while, but you actually flew to Vancouver. You didn't actually try to drive.
Well, I first drove to the harbor, and I took the boat, and then no, I flew there.
And then took a bike and did a crossing. And then when the bike broke down, you ran all the way to Vancouver. No wonder you were sitting at that table for 6 hours. You were trying to work out the leg cramps from running all that pace. Never mind. Anyway, you met Christo. Did you punch him in the face this time?
No, why?
Well, you've been telling me like offline all the time that you have this thing where you're just done with Christo. You wish he would stop bothering you. He's been calling you all the time. You've been telling me, it's like, look, someday, Robert, I'm going to have the nerve to just go up to Christo and put my forehead through his nose and tell him that I don't want to see him anymore. And
Yes. And then I spent all this money trying to find where he is, and
to actually see him. Yes. So it's
actually see him, so I can punch him on his face.
so he could punch you in the face. No, that would be bad. That would go against his entire persona that he's built up for himself. That would not work. He would actually probably draw out a diagram of how he would punch you in the face before he punched you in the face. So he would say, what feelings do I need to have? What is my goal? He would graph it out on a whiteboard, and then, okay, I think I'm ready. Come here.
Sounds about right, actually.
Yeah. Well, he would say, like, I want to explain how I'm going to punch you in the face before I actually do it.
This is the first step I'm going to do.
Yes.
And then this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to use this percentage of my force.
And he'll get irritated at every point, like his irritation will build, and then eventually he'll build up to the point where he gets emotional. How would Christo actually throw a punch? Would he keep his elbows in, or do you think he's a roundhouse kind of person?
Huh.
I don't know. How would Christo fight? I mean, he's always in black, so I can never tell his physique, but yeah.
It's so hard to imagine, actually.
I would think he would be quick, because I see him write pretty fast on a whiteboard. So I imagine like the way he would dodge left and right would probably be pretty impressive. I think his duck and weave is probably like top notch. I think, especially for a creative.
Yeah. I think you're right. Like, when he wants to move fast, he can do.
That would be interesting to kind of explore, like, who would actually win in a fight between two people that are in the design world. And you're not really going to take like somebody who's like,
fight.
Yeah, well, yeah, I would say, like, if you got him a couple of boxing gloves, or you put him in an MMA ring, who would come out the victor? Like, I like Jake Knapp and Jonathan Courtney in an MMA fight. Like, what? How did that actually work? I mean, I can't imagine Jake doing any kind of taunting. He's going, yeah, you're just gonna have to lay on the mat, because I'm gonna have to put an elbow through your head.
Oh, him.
Jonathan would be easy. I mean, he's like the yeah. You could just easily see him like going crazy, but at the same time, he'd be more like a I don't know, like a bouncing rooster, kind of like all over the place, like antagonizing and eventually throwing a punch. But then when he did actually fight, it would be I mean, you wouldn't want to be there. It would be he would probably throw down and eliminate everybody. So yeah.
We should do an experiment with it.
Or at least no, yeah, we'll do a design sprint on it. No, not a design sprint. It could be
Do
a
a
note and
design
vote.
sprint on it.
So we on one
How
side.
designer, how might we make designers fight?
No. Like on one side you have like one opponent, on the other side you have another opponent, and you have teams for each one. So one team is picking their ideal design fighter, and another person has their ideal design fighter on that side. And then they pick the top three, pair them up, and then they have a discussion on who would actually win and what techniques they would use. I think it would be an interesting kind of pointless exercise, but it would be probably something you would have to do while drinking alcoholic beverages or adult beverages of some type, just to make it fun, you know.
A lot of beers.
No, you could take Christo in a fight for sure. I don't doubt that. That's that. I mean, that's I think where I was going, but I just made a long about way of doing it. Anyway, let's not advocate violence between creatives. Let's move on to something more peaceful. Let's talk about the coronavirus. Let's talk about pandemics. No.
Oh my gosh, the coronavirus. That's got
Hey,
crazy, yeah.
the lesson learned, kids: don't eat exotic animals for dinner. It's not good for you, and it doesn't help anyone else.
And did you see like how much a mask can cost now on the internet?
Yeah. I'm looking at the numbers, so I'm an analytics guy, and the one thing
You have
of
like a
my
chart of like marking how the price increases every day for the mask.
yeah, I mean, when different companies come out with what they feel is the cure for this, or the thing that basically like represses it, they're gonna try to make as much profit as they can out of it, and that's the world we live in. It's not going to be widely available. It's going to be
Yeah.
for like the highest
It's kind
bidder.
of sad though, isn't it? I mean, there are people who are actually in need of masks, and then there's just no way that they can get it.
Well, here's the thing. This particular outbreak has numbers that are pandemic-like, and there's not much that rivals it historically. Someone I heard mention that it's been over a century since we had a pandemic. Well, I think we're going to get one with this one. There's a number of groups that are in stage 2 kind of, or late stage 2 kind of testing for things. They're going to test on animals. They're going to do all sorts of exploratory stuff with this to try to find it. But the reality is we're probably 6 months away from this. Meanwhile, the mortality rate of the coronavirus is pretty damn high. And the Chinese government, bless their souls for trying to figure out what they're doing. They are definitely underreporting the numbers. In fact, there was somebody from WHO that was essentially saying that you have to use a fractional kind of evaluation system against what they're saying, that there's probably, you have to add another third or 2/3 to those numbers. So I think when I wrote my article a couple of days ago about how remote is having its moment, that I forget. Actually, I have to look it up, because when I saw the numbers, I couldn't believe it. I didn't think it was that problematic. But I think it was ranging into like 63,000 infections that were reported, and I think about 6,000 deaths. I think I have to actually look at it, but that's just in China alone. But let me see. It's 77,658 infections with 2,663 deaths. So I basically exaggerated the deaths part a bit. I don't want people to die, just to let you know. That's not me. But it's like all the major countries have it. There was a reported case in California. The CDC made a statement. That the whole notion is that eventually it's going to be taken care of, and I hope that is the case. But the way that the world economies and the governments are looking at this is that, the way this is going, it's not good. It's I mean, the flip side of it is that I've been getting like, I said in the article, it's even true today. I came off a client call on virtual sprinting that was already planned, but during that call, I had 2 emails come through saying, "Hey, are you available on Friday? Because we have someone that needs to talk to you about doing sprints virtually, and they have no clue. Like they've never done it before. They're remote. They have remote technologies, but they have clients that have workshops starting next week, and they cannot fly out. They cannot get the right personnel in the room, and they're probably going to reschedule. But to keep the client contract, they need to have something in 2 weeks to meet deadlines at the end of the quarter. So yeah, I'm getting a lot of that, and other people have been mentioning also that they're getting an uptick in remote inquiries. So yeah, pandemics suck. I think it's
I won't be
the
surprised
short
on
one
that.
for it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty dramatic actually.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
but it's also very sad to see all people like, I mean, as much as people are blaming on the Chinese government not doing enough or not being enough transparent or something, I think they are doing a lot actually this time compared to what they have done before. I have seen crazy videos on how they actually, I don't know, it's quite sad in a sense, like they actually put wood boards outside houses to lock people in. I don't know how those people are going to survive. It feels like that is just a sense of letting them die themselves in the house or something. I don't know.
well, there's also the
Very
intern
sad.
camps. There's the Uyghurs, like the Muslim people that they're holding down there in captivity, and basically they have nowhere to go. And if it's something, there's an outbreak there, then that's going to be catastrophic. It's like there's a lot of fear in the market, and there's a lot of fear with like where things are going, just because there's no counterbalance to all of the information around the coronavirus basically spreading as fast as it is. I think there'd be certain tipping points where schools in the U.S. will start to close, or more European countries announce that they have to like kind of shutter things. There was a report today about that Starbucks is reopening about 85 stores in China, saying that the worst has been over. So there's certain market posturing being done by corporations. But again, until you start hearing it officially from some organizations that involve themselves with the disease and with tracking it, there's going to be that uncertainty in the air. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, what kind of tips do you have for people who have never really done remote work and they now have to pick it up?
I always advocate baby steps. So if it's like if they never got on Zoom or GoToMeeting or WebEx, or if they're new to it, having a session just to play with it and saying like, okay, like how does your connection? Let's try it with the video and without. Doing small little things like that, getting them used to being in the space, and sharing whiteboards, sharing sharing their screen, kind of instructing them how to do that, and do it a couple of times, and then you just build off of those experiences from there. It's kind of like any kind of lesson you give someone else. Have them experience it, see where the gaps are in understanding, kind of fill those in, and then the next stage is like, okay, so let's do an exercise while we're both kind of online, and we'll use this, and then see how that takes, and just go through the motions. So there has to be attention paid to it, and you have to work on it, but it's baby steps.
Right. But there's also like companies who have been doing remote work, but it's not like they don't really have a true remote culture built in per se. And how would you address those?
Companies that I know are hiring people that do that for a living, that can show them how to do it, and then people just kind of like leech off of that experience, whether it's design sprints, virtual design sprints, or working remotely. You have there are plenty of experts in the area of remote work that can be there physically with people to kind of help them through things, or get a group together to kind of go through the motions of remote working, and the figuring out on the company side what they currently do and how it needs to translate into a remote environment. But people are already actively looking for experts or so-called experts, I'd say knowledgeable authorities, people who are of authority to help them with their issues. I mean, I have at least 8 inquiries with me. I've got 2 RFPs I got to do by the end of the week. I'm not kidding when I say that I'm, you know, it would have been great if I had like a nominal amount of interest, but it's just been over the top.
Mm.
Yeah, still
Yeah,
getting
also.
some moment of sleep, but if I want to pursue every line of inquiry, I would be dead. I wouldn't even be on this. It would just be this. It would just be a microphone that you'd be looking at and a puppet maybe that you could animate later on, but that's it.
And you're starting to organize GVDS as well. So
Yeah, so that's the start of my what the hell happened last week. It was the announcement of the GVDS. I delayed it a week for VDS Europe having its kickoff kind of event they had in the Netherlands with that's Tom Jepson, Mehmet Karakas, and
I was there.
Jerome Formau, and you were there too. Yeah, so it was cool. They had the room kind of a video going into the room as well as all of our talking heads there, and so we went through and talked with things, and Jerome basically had pizza for everybody to carve out on, and I think it was a great start. But I used it as a vehicle for saying, okay, it's happening, it's on, and then the initial reaction told me, oh, I've got these things I got to do. So in a very, very high level, there's the GVDS, there's the mastery, I would say mastery course, with the mastery program that'll be starting up in April. There is the partnership program for people that want to partner with the GVDS in some fashion. There's the there's an alumni kind of program where you could bring in somebody that you know, and both of you would basically get a discount on the initial cost. There is the yeah, there's so many. There's a student one I just did 2 days ago where if you know, if you're a student and you're looking to get in, then it's in that same price tier. So far, I'm getting about 5 or 6 registrations a day. I'm quickly closing in on 100. I probably will hit it before like the second week of March. But
Wow,
so far,
okay.
it's interesting. The people that have applied have either, at least one of every 3 people have said that they either want to get their company involved, or they want to put a challenge up for consideration. So there's like 3 lines of inquiry that's happening starting next week that I'm going to have to field, as well as the training stuff. But that's looking forward into it. I've got all my time allocated to that, so it's perfect. But yeah, that's what happened with me last week was the GVDS. It was getting that giant thing finally launched.
Yeah,
Right
and the
at the
website
beginning.
is working, I saw.
Yeah, it renders well on mobile. It actually has all the information. It's not a statement of me saying I didn't have time to do it. Go look at this article. It's now it actually has every.
On workflow?
Yeah, I did, and I'm currently working on the testimonial page. So I have about 20 or 30 testimonials, both in video and written form. I'm going to be taking those and putting them in Webflow in a CMS, so that every time you go to the page, there's going to be a new one. And it's going to be from GVDS 2 and 3, and just continue to feed into those. Then there's a partnerships page that will pop up in mid-March that will announce some of the companies that are working with the GVDS. Some of those are monetary in nature. Some of them are going to be service contracts, so that we're going to exchange services. There's just a lot of activity happening. And I took this week not to really engage it too much, but starting next week, I'll be making personal Bonjoro videos to everyone who registered. I'll be reaching out to those companies to start working out the details for April and May. I'll be getting together the mastery group. There's an advisory group that I'm gathering to help create content and also advise on what the ideal experience should be in the mastery program, as well as the VDS training. So a lot of moving parts, but my aim is to make sure there's life after the design sprint, that people feel like they're properly trained to do virtual sprints and feel confident going forward, and that I make a pitch that this event is something that has value, that can basically take the notion that it's not just doing the sprint, but you actually move forward and work on something meaningful for your community, for an organization, and just delivering on the promise that we kind of worked on back in November and making it a reality.
Sounds awesome.
Double fingers crossed. Make sure that happens.
It's going to be busy.
Yeah, but I have a good feeling about it. So I'm not doing the showcase. That was kind of it was great, but it was kind of a resource suck right before the event. It's going to be concentrating specifically on everything related to training and making sure that people are positioned for what they want in May. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the projections are going to be around 200 to 250 people. I'm happy with 125. That would be like a comfortable number. 250 is a doable number, but I would have to probably hire people, like bring them in to help and literally
Or would
like,
you actually cap the number and
I don't know if I will. I'll have to. I really don't think it's going to get it beyond like 200. I really, really don't. I mean, only if the flashpoint will be when Mural and Mural and and I will probably be doing some sort of event in the future before the GVDS. And there's one other company I can't mention that when I do that, that's going to be a flashpoint as well. But yeah, so part of what I'm doing or advocating for, and this is something that I'm actually taking the example you set in the GVDS with your design work, on the templates. I want to work with people where there's a mutually beneficial outcome for both. So my aim when working with you is that I wanted to take the brand of Sandy Lamb and I wanted to elevate it. I wanted to showcase what you were all about and what you were capable of and with the work you were doing. And I wanted to make that front and center so people were aware of what I had seen early on in terms of what you were doing and your work ethic and everything else. I think we got close to that, or we got pretty close to it with the work we did. But now it's taking your example and applying it to people uh, like Laura Krishala, I think her name is, I won't say her last name right, or Fatima Kamali, which I have a very keen interest in kind of, getting her more awareness about what she does, and people that could really use that help to kind of get in the mix about virtual sprints and what they do really well, and try to see if I can give that a boost, because that's what's really intrinsically motivating for me. Now, same thing with you, is that I wouldn't necessarily want you to get involved if there wasn't a real good reason to do so, or something that is like, okay, Robert, I want to be able to kind of get to here with this, and this will be a valuable use of my time. That's where I would go, okay, I can get behind that, and let's figure out how we can get it done. That's where it would be really motivational for me to make happen.
It's awesome. It's also very valuable too. Well, it has been very valuable to me. So
Yep, and I just got to keep on going, because the minute it isn't, I expect you to dump my ass and not even have anything to do with me ever again.
I don't
It's
want
like,
to speak with you anymore.
yes, no podcast, no nothing. Just the hair stays black. I don't talk with you. It's like I have disconnected you from LinkedIn. I don't even bother with like your emails. Yeah. If it ever gets to that point, then I have turned into a completely different human being. So
Hopefully not. I don't expect
yes,
that.
no, I don't think I will either. So what else happened the last 2 weeks?
Oh, I got to mention this. So I was talking about that I met Crystal at the workshop. And then after that, I went to a 2-day conference, which is called the Award Conference.
I saw that. I remember I saw you posting about that.
Yeah. And the thing that I want to mention is, oops, someone's calling me. Uh, the thing that I want to mention is that Crystal was showcasing a new, I would say, like kind of like a new version of the social content model that Gary Vee had created.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the pyramids where like you create a big piece of content and then you can break it into smaller pieces and make micro content from it, and then smaller content.
It's like
and
the
so
pillar
on.
content model, I think it was called.
Yeah. Is it Pillar? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't
Wait,
remember the name.
keep talking. I'm gonna go get the dog. She's whining. She wants to come up.
Oh, we want to see her too.
Okay, I'll put her on. Keep talking. I can still hear you.
Okay, well, I guess I'll keep talking. I don't even hear what you are saying anymore. So, yeah, so what he was talking in his speech was that for most of us, it's actually very hard. And I also experienced that myself, because the way that Gary Vee has taught us, oh, hey,
Here you go.
Hello.
This is
Now you're in
Panda.
our podcast.
Yes.
Panda. Hey, my sheep is also called Panda.
Yeah?
Yeah.
She'll start shaking if I keep her up here too long, but yeah.
Oh.
There you go. She was trapped. So
Hey.
she doesn't have much back leg strength anymore, so she got trapped on the stairs. So that's why I heard this little whimpering, and I was like, okay, you got to come over. You want to say anything,
How
Panda?
old?
She's 12.
12.
She's an older dog. She smells like a dirty Dorito right now. She needs a bath. Yep.
Well, you didn't have to mention that because I can't really smell it.
Well, when she gets a bath, she smells like clean rice. But yeah, right now she's getting out. She's trending dirty Dorito. So we'll get that later. Okay, you had enough time in the spotlight. You're gonna go down. Okay. Does that work?
Oh.
Okay.
Maybe she wants to speak. Oh.
There you go. You good? All right. There's no sunlight up here. She's gotten used to either me or someone else being around them whenever we're home. So if I don't remember to bring her up to the home office, then that'll happen. She'll sit there and just go, and that's really like, you forgot me. Then I go like, yeah, I have to go get you. So where'd you go? Did you go back? I'll figure it out. Hang on. I have to figure out where she is. Oh, there she is. Okay. So make sure she doesn't fall down the stairs. That's all. Anyway, okay. You were saying about Christo, please. You're mentioning.
I was talking about, what is it called? The social.
It was about the content. It was like the content model, the pillar content model that Gary Vee was talking about, where if you post in one thing, you can basically slice and dice that and put it on different platforms.
Yeah, so he always mentioned like the one thing that you can do is make a podcast. And actually, that was the reason that we started on this, I think, because I was having difficulty to find my biggest content. And then, or like if you give a talk at something and then you can break it down into smaller pieces and make a carousel, Instagram carousel or something. And then after that, then you can make like spread it into different social media platforms. But I always have difficulties with that. I think I mentioned it also when I was doing the Miro board for his content thing. And the thing that I found very difficult is I often don't have enough time, or I have difficulty making that big piece of content. And I mean, we don't normally get to speak at talks every single day like he does. And I always found it very difficult to even start with that big piece of content. And what Crystal was saying in his talk during the Upward conference was that actually the better way of doing it, at least for us, not Gary Vee, but for us, would be flipping the triangle, the pyramid, and then create the smaller content. So start with like just smaller tweets, but then you want to start a lot of different things and then see which one, or I mean, not just tweets, but you can do it on LinkedIn or whatever, different platforms, but smaller ones that doesn't even consume you much time at all. So like 13 seconds or a minute or 5 minutes. And then you create a lot of this and then see which one actually has engagement. And then you can make it a bigger thing. And then after that, you can make it an even bigger thing. And then he showed us the actual steps, how he has been doing it. And I thought, actually, that is much easier in a way. And then now I don't have to, because my problem is often when I spend the time to make that big piece of content, then I don't have the time to make the smaller ones anymore.
Correct. So, and the idea is that basically you find which ones have traction with others, and then you just build upon those, especially if you're making creative works.
And then he used UX terms, like how you want to test it, like you're doing the smaller content to test it out. And then you iterate, and then you iterate on it. So, and then you finally have your, and then you can eventually maybe you can create like a tech talk from all the smaller contents that you have created. So, and I thought it was just much easier, consumable way of doing it.
Yeah, but both of those approaches require someone to do the work. Either way, You can start small and granular, or you can get large and scale down. So you can go from both ends of the spectrum, but it really, it just depends on your situation and how much time you have. You have to allocate the time to get it done. So if it requires you to put 1 hour of time after everything's done at the end of the day, or maybe even if you have time at work for a half an hour to start doing it, you got to put it on the agenda or it'll never get done.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but like the Gary Vee model, like when you create a big content and then you break it into many smaller ones, and like the effort that you put in this big piece, you don't even know if it's going to work in a sense. Like, yeah, so then I really like what Chris has came up with, which I can already know that this is going to work, and then I just have to make it bigger and bigger. So.
Yeah. So that's, in fact, I guess it would depend on where you start. If you have a full article, then you can go from there. But if you start with just a nascent idea, like a Twitter post, and then you can build off of that, if that really intrigues you, then you can go in that direction. So I can see easily both ways going.
Yeah, and he also mentioned, like, if you don't have a followers already, then you can just look at other people's small tweets, or you can go to Reddit or places where you just post a question and then see what engages people.
I do think that volume is the game, though. That's one thing I think that Gary Vee's got right, is that you have to put it. It isn't just your feed or your approach. The algorithms are basically going to take your content and put it in front of people that it's going to perform well on. But if you have more samples to go by, and the algorithm can learn what you tend to post versus who your audience is, then it can make that connection and drive attention to the platform. So ironically enough, Pinterest is one that doesn't have very much call to action, but it is an awareness engine. The less I post on there, then the numbers go dramatically down. But the more I post on there, I mean, the numbers, that there's no action to them because they're really, people click on them. But I even track the inbound links, and it's minuscule, but it is more of an awareness thing for branding. Reddit is so undervalued by the design sprint community. It is unbelievable. I don't know if it's because it's a lack of awareness or they just don't have an interest to it, but with the amount of attention that's there daily, I created a channel called Design Sprint. I'm sure that could be one for virtual design sprints, but it's literally a link farm. You could post stuff up there, and your numbers gradually do climb in terms of the people that subscribe to the channel and people that visit. And it really is a numbers game, because eventually you're going to post something that's going to have resonance, like, sorry, UX, the party's over. Just this week, I talked with Paul Bryan of UX Strat that I've known for a long time. The funny thing was that in that meeting on Monday, he recorded it. It was an interview where he was going to I guess it was set up to counterbalance or argue about whether or not UX is relevant or not in this day and age. And he came with statistics, he came with perspective. And my whole point was, like, this is all fine and well. It's not going to deter me from believing that UX is basically going downhill. And not as the people are going downhill, but as a discipline and as a term, it's losing its meaning in relation to all the things that are out there right now that espouse a user experience because of so many different reasons. And it's been, even today, I wrote that article 2 years ago, and every day I'm waking up in Medium, and my average amount of like notifications of activity or people that do something is in the 50s, and the majority of those are on that story. So yeah, it really comes down to volume.
And you can actually also duplicate that article and post it in different Medium publications.
Mm-hmm.
And that can also multiply.
Yes, and I've taken the 4 events that I put up in virtual virtual design events. I can't even talk now. The Facebook group. I'll be taking all 4 of those and duplicating them across tons of platforms, and then using Zoom to track each particular link on each platform to see where the traffic is coming from. It's not that it's going to be actionable for me. It's going to figure out, okay, what's actually making sense in terms of the time I spend on that platform, and what content actually works. But I think that's sometimes the equation that's missing from a lot of people in our space and the discipline, is that some people get social media, some people just don't. And the people that do tend to thrive in there have a better opportunity to have a conversation on the business side than people who just don't go down that route.
Yeah, I mean, I also talked a little bit about this during my last talk at the Bauhaus. Very briefly touch on it, and I just think like creating your own personal brand is so important these days, because that is something that is going to follow you. It doesn't matter where you go, it doesn't matter which company you work for, and that is essentially your identity. And social media is just a really great way of building that. So.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
One thing I'm really excited about, if we're talking about what's going to happen in the future, is something that I've been getting. It's been everything's been working out with it in terms of the people I've been testing it with. I've got it slated for March, and it's the Market Maker. It's a completely different process outside of the design sprint. That basically at its center is Alberto Savoya's prototyping techniques, combining them with OKRs and some other exercises. But I tell you, it puts people in an entirely different line of thinking, and actually gets them used to failing, gets them used to failing at scale in a way that doesn't require a lot of pain. It's just either it works or it doesn't. And it's the precursor for lean and design sprints and other thinking. And I'm really excited about it. That's something that I've been wanting to debut for a while, but I can't wait till that session happens. I think it's going to be like in the third week of March. That's going to be fun.
That's very interesting. A lot of people are actually very worried or scared of failing, or like finding out their ideas don't work in a way. And I always like, well, isn't it better to find that out earlier than after you try to do this thing and putting out all the effort, and then find out that, oh, actually nobody wants this idea at all. So.
Yeah, and the disconnect is that people think that failure points back to who they are, like they fail, but it's really like, in a way, it's just like playing cards. You're going to have a card, like if you're playing war with someone, like the game war for cards, you have two stacks. If you flip up your card and it's a king and the other person has a 5, well, you won that hand. If you flip up another card, it's the 2 of clubs, somebody has the 8 of diamonds, they win that hand. That's the way to look at it. It's just like, okay, what is the situation? How does it work? That's it. You're still the same person. You're just basically taking it and from an objective standpoint and seeing if something actually works for the market in terms of desirability in this case.
Right.
But yeah, that's something I'm definitely looking forward to.
Hey, I have a question actually. I was talking to Chris what is his last name? Gerber, I think.
Gerber.
Okay. Sorry, I'm really
We'll
bad
call
at
him Chris
last
G. He's one of the guys who knows Webflow very well. Yep, I know him.
And he does like learning sprints. Anyways, he asked me this question: how can you show your values as a designer?
Values as in morals, or values as in like in what context?
Well, I guess more showing like what you're doing at work is valuable to the company.
I don't know. I think it's more like, how can you show if it's valuable to yourself? The company's going to, the interpretation on the company side is going to be between the person you answer to, and you'll never be able to understand or know whether or not a company and an organization values what you do. They value it in the abstract because you're part of a department that delivers something for them. But for you as an individual, there's no traction there. It really comes down to how you value what you do there, and if it's meaningful, if it's purposeful, and if it checks all the boxes of the person that basically is responsible for, making sure you get paid. That's pretty much it. That's the focus.
I was thinking like it actually pretty easy if you're like doing growth design, then you have quantitative numbers to support you on whatever design decision that you have made. But in terms of more like a visual design, or when it comes down to just designing a logo, who's going to say if that logo that you deliver to the client is really worth X amount of money, right? So.
I think Tim Decker had it right when he did something with wearables, and it was part of his schoolwork, like as part of a thesis that he did. So I remember there was a vehicle for it. But I thought when you do something for social good that illustrates what you're capable of doing, whether or not it's in a certain discipline or with a certain skill, and you have a story to tell that goes along with it, that's something I've been thinking would benefit Chris immensely. Where if he's very, very good at what he does, but I think he compartmentalizes it in work projects. I think if he gives himself either a partner or a couple people to work with where he can showcase what he can do on the social spectrum, or for doing something that moves the needle for a group of people, and has somebody on the team that can help market that, that would do more for his reputation and for showcasing what he values more than anything else. Maybe it's the learning spit process or what have you, but having that compadres to basically bounce ideas off of and work together with and share experiences with is probably central to what the Global Virtual Design Sprint is all about, and that you're having a shared experience with Chris. It's just, he knows Webflow inside and out. He's really good at it. It's one cog of, or one piece of the puzzle, where if he combines his strength with two other people who are really good at something else, then you have something interesting to tell a story with, and you can point at that and say, this is what I'm capable of with the right people.
It's true. Yeah, this no-code design thing is very interesting, actually. I still have not got into that yet, but I think it's really like the future of designing.
Here's the thing that I told Paul in our interview, like I think it was last Monday, just this past Monday. I told him that I do buy into the idea that everything is going to be commoditized and the internet is basically going to squeeze the middle. I do believe that. I think it's just a matter of time when it starts to mature. And I think UX designers that are in the user experience field are going to get hit probably more sooner than later. And the specific example I gave was something that Ian Thorne had posted in the GVDS Slack around something that he's involved with, where you can basically do hand-drawn wireframes and both design and code could be produced from those. Now, granted, if you have somebody that's just going to go and draw a bunch of like boxes and lines and it looks awful, then the resulting stuff is going to be garbage. However, if you have someone that is able to use those tools and leverage them in a way where they start producing actual deliverables that work for multiple teams, like if you work through the nuances of what the details are, then there's going to be companies that are going to try to sell this as a way of making operations more efficient. You eliminate the redundancy of people in the process. Automation's already happening with robots on lines with things that are done. Why can't it be done with design? Is it so precious that you really need a human being to kind of get design done when you're really optimizing for metrics, likes, things that matter to the business, and not necessarily for user experience per se? You're actually looking for what actually moves the needle from a financial or incentive or market metric that either stockholders or someone or a company is looking to push forward. So the no-code stuff is good. I mean, I use Webflow all the time, but I think it's going to go even further than that once the conversion of machine learning and machine translation, co-translation of visual artifacts into things that are going to be consumed by machines anyway, eventually on the system side.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's already AI which can already produce like custom designs for things. Like I think Nutella also had a project where it creates like, I don't remember the number, like millions of custom labels, each individually decide in, I don't know how short of a time, but yeah, much faster than a designer anyway. And it's really crazy, and it's all coming. And it's actually like commoditizing design was a really big theme during the award conference. And basically everyone is seeing that, like, because a lot of people are trying to optimize the design process, and then a lot of templates and all that stuff are coming up. And then now it's slowly getting to a point that all websites almost look the same. And a lot of people were presenting there saying that designers kind of have to, well, they didn't really say they have to fight for it, but that they just kind of mentioned that we can actually drive away from that and be creative on the things that they do. what we do, and then make like don't just make everything the same in a way. And I had trouble agreeing on that myself, because sometimes I have into like websites that they are so creative that they don't look familiar to me anymore, and I don't even want to spend time on it. Like, I don't know, making the mouse cursor doesn't even look like a mouse cursor, and I don't know where I'm clicking on it anymore. I don't know, like I'm constantly looking for a menu bar on the top right corner, for example, and then it's not there, and it looks like doesn't, or a menu bar doesn't look like a menu bar, and then I have to look for it. Like, yeah, it's creative in a sense, but when I think about the purpose of a website, I mean, of course, there are websites that are more tailored to a certain field, and you need that creativity or like something that looks so different. But I'm like, I can't imagine, for example, my company's website would have like crazy animations and like different mouse cursors, different, I don't know, like different carousels, patterns, and stuff like that, because that will actually slow user down to figure out how to use that website. And funny enough, like an example is the award website, like the award conference website. When I first got on it, it looked so different that I actually had to take time to learn how to use it. So, yeah.
I start to think that if you play this out, that web design will exist as a fringe thing that will still exist in some things that for people that want to do individual like expression and don't want to be the cede control to like an entirely different system dynamic where it's really AI and machine learning creating everything that we see and just basically optimizing based on our usability, our ability to take in things in, how fast. I mean, everything's going to be measured in terms of how we adapt to our interfaces and what we respond to and what we prefer, and it'll be individualized to a T on everything. I actually think that once the draw to kind of help people with digital design starts to wane, that attention and the human attention to this space will start to drift into other things that are needed. And I think there's probably going to be more of an emphasis on the physical sciences with the environment, with kind of terraforming. If it may go in that direction where science has a huge rebound and people are interested in the actual physical world of kind of bridging digital and physical in a way that's more than just putting on VR goggles. I don't know. I can't predict the future, but I definitely agree with you that this entire design space is going to start to get squeezed because the technology is hinting at a future where humans are not going to be needed in the space much anymore.
Yeah, I can totally see that. I mean, I don't know how long that's going to come. Nobody can tell, but it is coming.
Yeah, what would you do if you're not a designer? Would you be a world traveler, Sandy, or what would you do with things?
I think I can still be a designer, but just a different kind of designer. And it comes down to the definition of design, right? So my definition of design is to solving problem, and not solving my problem, but solving the right problem for other people. And yeah, that's kind of why I feel like if what is really the purpose of a website, like the real purpose of the website is for people to find the information. It's not like an entertainment per se. So I don't know. If the website looks so fancy that you can't even look for the information, you can't find the information, then it's no purpose anymore.
I would probably default back to stocks, which is my hobby. I would probably just follow the stock market and trade off of that. And I would also be a full-time school teacher.
Cool.
I think my fourth grade teacher pegged it right when I was 12 and said, like, you're just like me. In that I have a natural affinity for helping people. So teaching is probably going to be my bent. I don't know if I'm going to be like physical in-person classroom. I think by the time it comes around, I'll be doing community-based learning, kind of what I'm going to attempt to do in March, with getting everybody to figure out what they would like to learn and set that up and get the content, and then we learn together. I think that speaks more to how education is going to be done in the future. So I think I'm going to probably be part of that movement. And if I'm crazy, I'll probably get into politics because You
The next
laugh, but
president?
no, God, no. You kidding me? If my past ever came out in the future in like the light, it would like everyone would be like, he was like that. Holy, I can't. No, really. That stuff with animals is putting off. Can't do that. No, no. I have no idea.
Actually,
Um,
when I think about it, like many years ago, I had this idea about opening like a cat cafe, which combines with like pet product design, because I actually came from industrial design background, so designing
yeah.
physical product, and I actually had this idea, but yeah, I don't know if I want to do it anymore.
You said cat cafe, and I immediately thought of a bunch
Cat.
of people sipping tea and coffee, and cats basically roaming the entire place, like playing with the
Yeah,
like sippy straws and like lying in the middle of the floor, so you have to physically like make sure that you don't step on them. The
essentially they want it. That essentially is that.
there would be catnip on Fridays, so that all the cats would be stoned, lying all around the place, so it would be have this relaxing mood. You know, you could
Yeah,
adopt a cat, and yeah, I could see that, but
that's
you're gonna have
exactly
to.
the idea actually.
Yeah,
So
you're gonna have to
I
have
actually
those cat boxes are gonna have to be in a completely different space than the restaurant. They have to be like in a side house somewhere for that to really work.
I had this whole like kind of like business idea already planned. I mean, it was like many years ago. I actually wanted to partner with like the adoption people, the adoption center. So then the cats that actually are in the cafe, they can play with the cat, and then they can like they will find if they match the personality with the cat, and then they can decide if they want to adopt the cat, because a lot of the pets that when they got adopted and then the owner found out that it's not what they were expecting or something, they just went by the look, and then eventually the animals have to go back to the shelter. So yeah, and then I was thinking like one side of the things is I will constantly designing products for pets, for cats, and then people can see, like I imagine like a transparent window where they can see my design process the whole time. So it's like cats as an entertainment and my design process also as an entertainment. And then they can watch me how I actually create a product. And then in the end, they will see it on the shelf where they can purchase it. So that was the idea.
I see. Well, I mean, if when you make your millions of dollars in design, and eventually you're going to do that, I'll expect the cat cafe to open up in Germany somewhere, and we'll see where it goes. Then we could do a podcast when I'm old and crazy, and you still have your brains about you, and go like, "Hey, do you think about having a cat someday?" I go, "I'm not a cat. Don't tell me I'm a cat. I got enough people telling me I'm crazy." Yeah.
Yeah. And I had this fear of turning into a cat lady. So,
You're an elephant lady right now. I don't think you can pretty much transition into cats that fast unless you decided to absolve yourself of all meaningful human relationships, which is it's rare. It doesn't happen as often as people would want it to think. Then again, if the coronavirus wipes us all out, then you pretty much will have nothing but cats to keep you company, because we're all going to be dead with the
true.
exception of a few people.
Scary world.
Yes, I'm ending the show on a very high note. I can also mention that the Dow Jones now is about 650 points under. It's about like what, almost 3,000 off of its high. And I say this because, this I'm going to show my stock side of me. We're under the 200 moving year 200 was it 200 day moving average, the 200-day moving average, which means we're in correction territory. There's some hints that there's some market makers that are trying to stop the downward spiral of what's happening, but there was a spike in activity around mid-December, back when the Dow was at 28,200, to suggest that there was some money being put into the system that was expecting a correction. They just didn't know how much. So whether or not it bounces back is anybody's guess. But yeah, there's your stock market minute of the day. That nobody cares about. Hey, I'm keeping with the theme of the show. Now I have proven without a shadow of a doubt that by telling you all about the stock market that you will never probably look at, that you have just spent an hour of time on what the hell happened last week with Sandy Lamb and Robert Skrobe. We really appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you for the next episode, where you can waste some more time with us. Bye.
That's a super good closing.
There you go. It's an outro, so you can cut off everything else after this.
Awesome. All right.
Okay, Sandy.
Okay.
I will no doubt speak to you online in some capacity. And do we have anything is there anything for us to talk about? I think I really don't think anything's going to be GVDS related until next week. Right now it's still above water. I think you're just going to see me put out a whole bunch of GVDS stuff for awareness and kind of go from there.
One thing that I should probably mention is the Europe Virtual Design Sprint is launching tomorrow.
That's true. Okay. I'll make sure to make a note of that. I saw the countdown that was happening. So
yes, it's going to be very exciting, and they had put tons of work trying to build this community. So really looking forward to that.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yes.
See, now all right. So you have to be the person that speaks at the end of the podcast because I'm too much full of gloom and doom. So let's make a promise that basically you, the person that.
Hey everyone, this is the end of the podcast, and thank you. Bye.
There you go.